The great Geoff Mosher from the Inside the Birds podcast is here. InsideTheBirds.com. You can listen to the Inside the Birds podcast on all podcasting platforms. And, of course, each and every Monday and Wednesday on Football at 4, right here on the Sports Bash. Geoff Mosher, hello.
Hey, what's going on? I'm not sure it was a win-win for Grimes. I mean, he doesn't lose, but, I mean.
Well, it's a win-win because his ask was preposterous.
Yeah, it was, but he was trying to exert leverage that he didn't have, which you get. But they probably could have figured out a one-year balloon payment type deal. So at least give him a little bit more money than the qualifying offer. But
he was asking for 20-some million a year. You're a 10-point-a-game scorer. Come on, dude.
Yeah.
You know, what was last year when they were playing against somebody, and it was the guy that used to play for the Sixers.
Yeah.
And he's like, hey, next year, you're going to be standing in that corner over there watching Embiid, so shut your mouth. When they were playing, the guy was playing for the Cavs last year. Oh, man, I can't believe I can't think of his name. I can think of Kate Scott saying his name when he hit the three all the time.
I can't think of it either, but I know what you're saying.
Well, anyway.
Yeah.
Let's start with Brown and where this is today. Has this blown? He's going to talk in the next couple minutes here, I would imagine. Practice is about over. Does he flash his smile, say this is all blown out of proportion, or does he comment further on this today that this thing is not over with?
I don't think he's ever really said that. Maybe once he said it gets blown out of proportion, but I mean, what he usually does is tell the people that, yes, he's frustrated and this is how he copes, with the reading thing on the sideline. He explained that, that was his way of being able to cope and find some inner peace. And, obviously his tweet is, very religious, and it did, or from the Bible, and it did insinuate not wanting to be there. So he'll have to explain that. But something tells me he's going to explain his way around it, assure everybody it's fine, and move on. And then, 5-6 weeks from now, when he has no targets, then we'll go through it all over again.
Well, I mean, he did have things like this in the past, and they kind of went away.
Yeah, then they always do. I'm not saying we're never going to get to a day where it doesn't go away. I mean, God, if we go 3-4 more weeks and he gets, 7 targets, then it's going to be a problem. But I would say that that's also a problem with the Eagles' offense.
Bang, bang, George Niang, by the way. It was George Niang.
Oh, George Niang.
Was the one. Josh gave it to me. Thanks, Josh. It was George Niang who was the one that told him, yo, shut your mouth, dude. Next year you're going to be standing in that corner over there waiting for Embiid to throw you a breadcrumb. Anyway.
Well, actually, that might help him if he gets 5 or 6 of those a game and nails them. Then he's going to look pretty good.
Well, then, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But, if you show that you excel in that role, then we'll pay you. You can't ask for it before you've proven you can do it again. You can't give me 25 games of it and then ask for $25 million. It's ridiculous. Anyway, I digress.
You always over-ask, and then you try to settle for less. And in his case, he settled for the least, but that's what you get.
So, Brown, I want to ask you this question. Brown had 9 targets last week. He had 10 the week before. He had 8 the week before that. If you got 8, 10, 9 targets every single week, should you be complaining?
I don't know that he's complaining about targets. We'll have to hear him talk. I mean, I think with him, it's not always been about targets. It's been about production and the ability to produce. And, he has at times expressed frustration with the quote unquote, the pass offense, right? That was what he said last year. What could be better? He said the pass offense. It made a big headline. He didn't say getting me the ball more. He was just saying in general, the pass offense didn't look good and he wasn't able to thrive within it. And we're seeing that again.
We played a bite earlier from Chris Long on the Green Light podcast. I want you to listen to what he said here because, Moshe, I think this ultimately might be, and we've talked a little bit about this, but Chris bringing this to light, this might be the Eagles' bigger problem long term. Take a listen.
I know the offensive line's beat up. I mean, Lane left the game. Landon Dickerson wasn't healthy when he started this season. When you watch him, I know he's hurting, and I think he's an absolute warrior. But, Steen's not Becton, and I would go as far as saying if this team's going to win with this offensive line, and I'm not calling the offensive line out because I think the tackles are fantastic. I think they got a great guard who's really banged up right now. if they win with this group, it would be the most unique run that they've had because this isn't the 23 O-line. It's not the 24 O-line. And I don't even think I know it's not the 17 O-line. So this would be, if they can make this run, pretty impressive.
So he mapped out a lot of things about this offensive line. And if these are the problems, they're going to have a problem getting this offense going the way that they the way that they have been successful.
Well, I would agree with that assessment if the case is that over the course of the next 14 or so weeks that there's not an improvement on the offensive line. Actually, yesterday on the Inside the Birds platform, we came out with Inside the Tape with Greg Cosell, where he had a really thorough discussion on the offensive line, and I had a lot of all 22 footage, and I'll have it also in a story on Philly Voice today showing lots of breakdowns in the run game, especially on the offensive line. And I think it's pretty obvious that the multiple surgeries that Landon Dickerson has had since the end of the Super Bowl, the back surgery that Cam Jurgens had at the end of the Super Bowl, after the Super Bowl, Lane Johnson being out of the lineup the last 2 games, a new right guard who I think is fine. He's doing fine, but he's not as massive as Mekhi Becton, who sometimes would just create space by being massive. I think all of that has factored in. And so if you're of the school of thought that Dickerson and Jurgens just need more time, more reps and more weeks and distance between their surgeries, and that they'll strengthen up and get better, then that's an optimistic viewpoint that turned to being what it is. I don't think talent I don't think all of a sudden became bad. I do worry about Dickerson with the surgeries because he's had multiple before this year. He looks kind of bigger, more weight, so I don't know what's going on with his body. So there's a little concern there. But as far as Lane Johnson or Jordan Mailata or, Steen not being who they are, or Jurgens being a lot different than last year, I did notice in the Bucs game there was an angle block that Steen didn't make on a linebacker that he usually makes. And I don't want to project that to be like, because it happened once, it's been happening all year, but there have been a couple of Jurgens blocks that didn't hold up this year. That wasn't the first one we saw. It was just very glaring. So, yes. So Chris Long's right. You're right. If this thing doesn't get better, it's not going to get better for Saquon.
Well, how much of what they do offensively is predicated on the offensive line? In other words, the identity that they had a year ago with Saquon Barkley being a 2,000-yard rusher, is that Saquon, or is it, no, we got this great offensive line, and Saquon is the beneficiary of that line? Now, he's a great talent, but you could put Miles Sanders back there and get 1,200 yards or 1,500 yards. They didn't use Sanders as much as they used Barkley, but having that line, and if it's not the same, you're seeing that Saquon Barkley just can't be a 2,000-yard rusher because it says Barkley 26 on his back.
I will answer that question with, I think, is a very clear and glaring statistic that shows you the situation. Last year, Saquon Barkley was first in the NFL in both yards before contact total and average, 3.8 yards before contact. 3.8 yards, that's a bad, if you're a backup running back, you're probably happy if you average 3.8 yards. That's what he was getting before contact. As we all know, he averaged over almost close to 6 yards per carry, okay? This year, Saquon Barkley is averaging 1.7 yards before contact. That ranks 38th in the league. He ranks 18th in total yards before contact. So I think that just went and answered your question of how important the Eagles' offensive line is to what they do in the running game, because Saquon Barkley is used to having pretty enormous holes to run through. And then what made him special compared to anybody else is that once he got through that hole, you are not catching him. And then every once in a while, he'll take a smaller hole and turn it into something even bigger. But right now, the holes are not there, and he's getting hit and contacted and slowed down a lot before contact. Here's a glaring number for you, Mike. Against the Buccaneers, 6 of his 19 carries went for negative yardage. It's 33%, about 33% of his carries. And then 6 more went for 3 yards or less. So that's, in my math there, that tells me he didn't gain 3 yards on almost 63% of his carries.
How then is that affecting, or could it affect the passing game? Because we said 10 targets for AJ last week against the Rams. This week against Tampa, he got 9. Why are those targets not fulfilling one week, but they are the week before?
Well, obviously, it's harder to pass when you're behind the sticks and you're not used to wearing. A, you're behind the sticks. B, a good running game wears down a defense, right? How the Eagles thrive off no huddle. It is one of their biggest weapons, and Jalen Hurts is one of the best quarterbacks I've seen in a long time about knowing when to.
We got Mosher frozen up here. We'll try to get him back in action on the Sports Bash football at 4. And one thing I want to throw into the mix here. All right, let's add to what he's saying. The Eagle. Oh, there's Mosher. All right, he is back in, and there you go.
Yeah, I was just saying no huddle is a big part of what they do, and it's hard to execute your offense in no huddle when you're not ahead of the sticks. You're not wearing down a defense. You're not marching down the field methodically.
They're not, and well, because there's been a lot of speculation that a lot of Browns routes and stuff are very similar. Like he keeps running the same routes, and you're like, well, one week you ran those routes, and there was a lot of meat on the bone, and then if the next week you ran similar routes and nothing good happened, I mean, he had 9 targets, only 2 catches. I say this earlier. Goddard, I think, had 2 targets and 2 catches. Somebody else had 4 targets, 4 catches. Somebody else had 2 targets, 2 catches. He had 9 targets and 2 catches. There's a huge disparity there.
Yeah. I get sort of, wishy-washy on the complaints about routes because I think the Eagles offense, we talked about this, has basically been the same construct over the last 3 years. And when it's working, it's great. When it's not, everybody says it's predictable. But, it looked fine in the second half of the game against the Rams and the first half against the Bucs.
So, in other words, is AJ, are you half-assing the route? Are you not running it, to the best of your ability? Are you I don't like this route, I'm not going to run it well?
Well, I'll tell you this. This is something to monitor over the course of the season because 4 games is too small of a sample size. But I did, we do Inside the Data with Sam Finkel. He's our analytics expert, and he's really good at getting all the data. And it'll be out on Friday. But we specifically looked at A.J. Brown's separation, yards per separation per route run over the last 3 years. And there is a decline in separation. Now, he's getting older. He's had some knee issues in the past. He had hamstring issue all throughout camp and even last year. And I do wonder if some of this is also on A.J. Brown, because when's the last time we've seen this year A.J. Brown catch the deep ball with the late hands or the body control, which he is elite at. But I remember when he got to the Eagles that year, 2023, especially when they had all those big explosive plays and touchdowns, right? He could beat corners over the top. And I don't see a whole lot of him beating guys by a yard or 2 over the top. When he does catch the ball that is deep, it's usually because he's just out muscling a defensive back. So I do wonder if there's something to that. Now, the ones that Jalen threw him in the second half the other day down the sideline were not catchable. It's not his fault. But I do just wonder in general, and when you look at the bigger picture, if he's losing a little bit of that separation ability that he used to have and what that means.
All right. Well, listen, if that's the case, how big of a factor is that in the offense of A.J. Brown not being able to get separation and utilizing that weapon in the offense?
Yeah, and just to be crystal clear, analytics sometimes don't tell the full story. Your separation per route can be impacted by the route you're running as well. It's hard to beat a defender if you're just running a quick comeback, right, as opposed to a deep post or a go route. So we did note it that 2 weeks ago when they had that really bad game against the Rams in the first half, or was it 2 weeks before that? The Kansas City game, Kansas City game, it seemed like every single one of AJ routes was an intermediate route, a quick inbreaker. He had nothing deep. So was that the design of the offense that day? Was it a lack of faith of him getting open against those guys? I don't know. You'd have to be in their building and understand the game plan to know. So I don't want to just say because the number is down that it means he's losing his speed or athleticism. It could be usage, but it is a number I think that tells a decent story, and that's why I say I want to follow this over the course of the season.
Yeah, all right. Well, I'm definitely looking forward to that. I do want to say this. They got the ball to John Mechie twice the other day. Not a lot, but, hey, just 2 quick pitch and catches. These are the throws that you're like, why can't I get my best receiver the ball in those spots? Because no corner wants to have to come up and try to tackle A.J. Brown. They're more inclined to try to make a tackle on John Mechie, no offense, who's a little bit smaller than A.J. So if I can get A.J. to catch that little dumper out of the, flare out of the backfield or flat like that, good luck with a corner trying to one-on-one tackle him.
It's possible. In both of those catches for Mechie, I believe they lined him up like kind of like an offset fullback spot and then just throw it to him where you can kind of confuse the defense because they're not really paying attention to the number. They don't recognize it. I feel like if you put AJ there,
he was playing tight end one play.
Yeah, everybody's yelling it out and pointing to him. I mean, the Dolphins did that all the time with Tyreek Hill, but you could just put the ball in Tyreek Hill's hands. He's so explosive, it wouldn't matter. I'm not sure that's the right way to manufacture touches for him.
Not the same. So I'm just saying, like, get him.
I get what you're saying.
Moving him around the coverage.
Yeah. They've certainly played a lot of 2x2 formations this year. Haven't seen as many of those 3x1 concepts. Yeah. So I mean,
except for on the tush push goal line, they flooded the one side. And that's Goddard said that play had been in their playbook for 4 years, and they finally used it. So how much else just needs to be dusted off now to say, all right, the stuff we're doing, people seem to be catching on to. Let's dust some of these off.
Yeah, it would be funny if they averaged like 300 passing yards per game from here on out and said, we could have done this for the last 3 years.
Let me ask you this then. Jalen said, is that what y'all wanted to see? And a lot of people are like, yeah, that's what I wanted to see. Do you think that this offense could succeed if they flipped the script and said, we're now going to rely on AJ, Devontae, Jalen. It's your offense?
That's a tough question, only because we've only seen that in spurts. And I think that when they've tried to become a more pass-heavy offense, it hasn't always worked consistently. And I don't think that they are a diversified enough offense from a route concept. They certainly have the talent, but just from what they do offensively to be like that. I think a lot of their marriage of pass and run is very important. A lot of what they do in the run sets up how they throw the ball, because you can throw the ball deep when you have those one-on-ones that are created by people funneling a lot of guys at the line of scrimmage to stop your run game. So if they came out and just tried to throw the ball at a 65 to 70% clip, I don't know that they would see the same kind of openings. I mean, it's all speculation. It's hypothetical. They've got great players, like you said, so they should be able to move the ball anyway. But that's why I feel like they do it every once in a while, but not consistently from week to week.
Well, it's like last year after Carolina. We and you might have been having this conversation. Hey, Jeff, what if Detroit or Cincinnati or the Rams had A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith?
Yeah, I mean, it's the old, what if on the other side. But, the way this team plays, the way Jalen Hurts plays quarterback, he wants to throw most of his passes outside the numbers. He's okay taking a sack instead of a risky throw, and because he holds on to the ball for the most part. They play like that because they've always had that dynamic run game to complement it. If you start throwing the ball around a lot, and unless Jalen Hurts throws differently and becomes a different style of attacker, taking more risks, throwing in tight windows, middle of the field, things like that, then we don't really know what the offense would look like. And I don't think it would function right. And I'm not going to sit here and say it can't be done. Okay, I know that people are going to twist my words and say you're saying Jalen can't throw like everybody else. I'm just saying that they don't do it, and that the tape and the evidence shows you how he plays the game. And so they've designed an offense to complement that. Yeah. So you never know what somebody is capable of doing or not doing until they get the chance to do it. And we haven't really seen that opportunity outside of maybe some small spurts, right?
Yeah. Well, they did it in the Super Bowl in 2022. That they didn't win the game, but he played pretty well.
But again, that's a sample size of the whole season you go through, and they ran the ball a lot that year. That was their offense.
All right, Geoff Mosher from the Inside the Birds podcast, and of course, InsideTheBirds.com for all of your Eagles. You can get that on all podcasting platforms, and right here on the radio on Football at 4 on the Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN. We do it every day. Talk a little football, 4 o'clock right here on the Sports Bash.